Literature and cultural studies. Modern cultural studies has a double ancestry. It comes first from French structuralism of the 1960s, which treated culture, including literature, as a series of practices whose rules or conventions should be described. Barthes is specially interested in demystifying what in culture comes to seem natural by showing that it is based on contingent historical constructions. In analyzing cultural practices, he identifies the underlying conventions and their social implications. The other source of contemporary cultural studies is Marxist literary theory in Britain. The work of Raymond Williams, Culture and Society, which was published in 1958, and of the founder of the Birmingham Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies, Richard Hoggard, The Uses of Literacy, published in 1957, sought to recover and explore a popular working class culture that had been lost sight of as culture was identified with high culture. This project of recovering lost voices, of doing history from below, encountered another theorization of culture from European Marxist theory, which analyzed mass culture as opposed to popular culture as an oppressive ideological formation, as meanings functioning to position readers or viewers as consumers and to justify the workings of state power. The interaction between these two analyses of culture as an expression of the people and culture as an imposition on the people, has been crucial to the development of cultural studies. Cultural studies in this tradition is driven by the tension between the desire to recover popular culture as the expression of the people or give voice to the culture of marginalized groups, and the study of mass culture as an ideological imposition and oppressive ideological formation. On the one hand, the point of studying popular culture is to get in touch with what is important for the lives of ordinary people, their culture. On the other, there is a strong impetus to show how people are shaped or manipulated by cultural forces. How far are people constructed as subjects by cultural forms and practices, which interpolate or address them as people with particular desires and values? Cultural studies asks how far we are manipulated by cultural forms and how far or in what ways we are able to use them for other purposes, exercising agency, as it is called. Cultural studies dwells in the tension between the analyst's desire to analyze culture as a set of codes and practices that alienates people from their interests and creates the desires that they come to have. On the other hand, the analysts wish to find in popular culture an authentic expression of value. One solution is to show that people are able to use the cultural materials foisted upon them by capitalism and its media industries to make a culture of their own. Popular culture is made from mass culture. Popular culture is made from cultural resources that are opposed to it, and thus is a culture of struggle, a culture whose creativity consists in using the products of mass culture. Work in cultural studies has been particularly attuned to the problematical character of identity and to the various ways in which identities are formed, experienced, and transmitted. Particularly important, therefore, has been the study of the unstable cultures and cultural identities that arise for groups, for example, ethnic minorities, immigrants, women, that may have trouble identifying with a larger culture in which they find themselves, a culture which is itself a shifting ideological construction. The relationship between cultural studies and literary studies is a complicated one. In theory, cultural studies is all-encompassing. Shakespeare, rap music, high culture, low culture, culture of the past and culture of the present are all encircled in cultural studies. However, literary studies itself has never been unified around a single conception. Since the advent of theory, literary studies has been a contentious and contested discipline where all kinds of projects treating both literary and non-literary works compete for attention. Cultural studies arose as the application of techniques of literary analysis to other cultural materials. It treats cultural artifacts as texts to be read rather than as objects that are simply there to be counted. Arguments about the relation between literary and cultural studies can be grouped around two broad topics. One, what is called the literary canon, and the appropriate methods of analyzing cultural objects. Theory has reinvigorated the traditional literary canon, opening the door to more ways of reading the great works of literature. The growth of cultural studies has accompanied an expansion of the literary canon. Literature that is widely taught today includes writings by women and members of other historically marginalized groups. The application of the criterion of literary excellence has historically been compromised by non-literary criteria like race and gender. For that matter, the idea of literary excellence has been subjected to debate today under cultural studies. Recent theories debate the question of whether there is a social totality, a socio-political configuration, and if so, how cultural products and activities relate to it. But cultural studies is drawn to the idea of a direct relationship in which cultural products are the symptom of an underlying socio-cultural configuration. This involves a shift from close reading of the text to attend the complexities of meaning from a socio-political perspective. If literary studies is subsumed into cultural studies, this sort of symptomatic interpretation might become the norm. The specificity of cultural objects might be neglected, along with the reading practices which literature invites.